to support the management of hybrid cloud as code. Take it away, Ryan.
Hello everyone, how are you still doing? It is a day with a lot of information to digest, right? My name is Ryan. I am the solution architect with Red Hat. I base in Singapore. My primary focus is around telecommunication, so things like 5G, edge computing, the cool stuff. Today, I would like to share with you on the hybrid cloud management with Ansible. This incredible journey started somewhere around 10 years ago, a little longer than that. We had a lot of arguments around whether we should embrace cloud technology, whether we should go onto the cloud. Along the way, we all came to agree that it is the right things to do. From then, we have moved from the legacy platforms to microservices, containers, cloud native architectures. Many organizations have or they are going through the digital transformation at the moment. As part of it, we need to deliver the most efficient architecture to our organizations and to meet their business needs. That is where multi-cloud and hybrid cloud architectures and requirements came into the picture. This is from the Gartner report for the technology trends in 2021. Distributed clouds, anywhere operation, hyper-automation. Sounds familiar, right? In early 2020, we had a lot of discussions with our customer to identify the right approach, the right strategy to move on to the hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. We try to came out with the best possible way to do that and identify the right technologies and the tool sets to do that. Then something happened, something we all know, something we all hated, pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic has really pushed us to adapt and utilize more of the cloud technologies. We have learned that we need to be able to operate from anywhere, anytime, for any situation. We need to be able to adjust and flexible to accommodate the quick changes in requirements. And we also learned that people are very important. Our people are very important. In order to utilize our resources of our people in the most efficient manner, we need to automate our day-to-day mundane tasks so that our people can work on something more important. In 2020, we had many uncertainties. We had to react to the situation with what we have, what we know of. So in 2021, we need to take a step back and take control of the situation, right capabilities, and the flexibility to respond to whatever it might come next. Right, so let's take a look at what we have today. Even though we want or how much we want to be the cloud native, we have to admit that we cannot really get there immediately. We have a lot of traditional workloads that we need to manage and maintain. We still have a traditional VMs, servers, very monolithic applications, traditional storages, routers, switches. They are going to be around sometime, or they might not even go away at all. At the same time, we have a new technology landscape. We have the infrastructure for the cloud native workloads, containers, Kubernetes, API and API management systems, data streaming, data lakes, analytics, AI/ML. So that is the situation now we are in. We have the one side of the traditional workloads, another side of the new modern cloud native technologies. we need the capability to manage both. So that is where Ansible automation came into the picture. Ansible is the most popular automation tool that you can use to orchestrate, manage, automate the configuration, deployment, provisioning of your environment, and also for the security and the compliance check. This activity can be performed on your firewall, router, switches, network equipment, operating systems, as well as on the containers and the clouds, and even to the other infrastructure management systems like a monitoring system, CMDB, and so on. So you will notice that Ansible is something you can use very much end to end of your IT infrastructure requirement. This code is from our own CEO, Paul. Every CIO is a cloud operator. If it is not happening yet today, that is what's going to happen very soon. With 5G and edge computing just around the corner, we are going to end up with a lot more clouds than we think we will. We are going to have a private clouds in your multiple data center at your edge locations. We are going to have the multiple public clouds all over the places. So what we really need is that we need to have tools and technology that help us to manage and automate that kind of complex and large environment. Something that can really cut across everywhere, something that can be the common platform that everybody can use, not just one particular team. That can be the something from your infrastructure people, operating system, application developer, or the cloud operators, all the way to your security auditors and so on, right? So that is the one of the major requirement today. This screenshot is something I took from our cloud.redhat.com. If you have an account, you can go going to take a look. You will see the Amazon, Microsoft, Google as our partners. They are contributing and they have been contributing and they are going to continue to contribute into the Ansible community. They have been creating Ansible modules. They wrote sample Ansible playbooks, collection, and the rules so that our common customers can really pick it up and able to automate very quickly. So for AWS, there is not everything. You will see that is a lot of things, but there's not everything. I personally very like to say that with Ansible, you can use Ansible to manage and automate almost everything you might have in AWS. We can interact with or we can use Ansible to integrate to many different components of the AWS. We can do deployment, we can do configuration, and so on. When we are talking about AWS, there is something I usually hear from my customers. They normally ask if you are already existing AWS user, customer, right? You might already have some automation through the cloud formation. So their question is normally like, I already have it. How do I move to Ansible? How do I integrate to Ansible? If you want to move everything to Ansible, you can do that. Or else, what you can do is in Ansible, we have a module for the cloud formation. So you can use Ansible to trigger AWS CloudFormation template to deploy for you. But what Ansible offer on top is that once CloudFormation completed its tasks, if it is everything you need, it is good, right? If it is not, you might need someone to go in to do some configuration, installation, and stuff. These are the things that Ansible can take over. So Ansible can trigger CloudFormation to deploy the necessary resources. Then from there, Ansible can take over to configure to your desire end state. So once the job is completed, you will have the ready environment for you to use. It is not only for AWS and CloudFormation. We some time ago we had a white paper that released together with HashiCorp, how Ansible and the Terraform work together. So the same scenario, right? We can use Terraform to deploy, Ansible to configure and operate for you. And again, this is not just for AWS and Terraform. That will be something similar to other cloud providers as well. This is the center AWS EC2 provisioning playbook. They're very simple. You might not agree, but trust me, it is. Even though there is a lot of curly brackets, those are the parameters. So you don't have to hard code in your playbook. You can define your parameter value during the time of the execution. So you just write once. You can use it for many different deployments. So here you will see that it is deploying the EC2 instance with your desired image type, in your desired region, and so on. Right? We have quite a number of the modules to use Ansible to interoperate with Microsoft Azure Cloud and its resources. Even though I am showing you here only AWS and Azure, we have modules and collections for other major cloud providers as well. So yeah, we can use Ansible to manage many different things, what we can do with it. In fact, from the infrastructure deployment and management, it doesn't change much, even though technologies and landscape change, right? We are still doing this deployment of the servers, application, databases. We are still doing this hardening and compliance, log management, network management, and so on. But the thing is, your process will be the same, right? Be it the steps or your workflow will be the same, be it on your on-premise, be it on your cloud. And at the same time, you can have the very like a like a like a cloud activities, something that you do only on the cloud, like a RDS creation. So with Ansible, you have the capability to do both, and you can piece these things together to be something for more meaningful. Ansible is very composable. We like to compare Ansible to like a Lego pieces, right? So in Lego, you have many different pieces with many different shapes. Once you put them together, you can create something different. Depend on the number of the pieces that you put together, you end up with a different result. The same goes here. This is the very classic use case. Creation or the onboarding of the new application deployment. This can be your Ansible workflow, right? You will be creating the VM, you will be installing the middleware, deploy your application, do the validation tasks, create DNS, create your load balancer entry, and open your firewall rules. Something we all do. We have been doing. If you have this on Ansible, each of the box here, it can be your individual playbook. It can be your individual tasks, your Lego pieces. If you want to move this workflow to your AWS environment, you can just take away unnecessary components and put in the related components back in. So your VMware deployment became like an EC2 deployment. Your things like an info block, load balancer, firewall, they can be the same. They can be different, depend on your organization. If it is the same, you don't have to do anything. You just change from the EC2 to VMware. Even if it is, it can be your things like a Route 53, Elastic Load Balancer, right? Network access policy. You just have to replace these things. You can retain your this operating system part, right? Your application middleware part. And if you are going to deploy something different on your AWS, then you can maintain the AWS related parts and you just replace the major application part to something else, maybe like a database deployment. So that is what I mean by composable. You will be writing Ansible playbooks for your certain tasks. Then when you have the activity, some activity, you will just put your tasks together to automate your activity. And this thing can be interchangeable between your on-premise to the many different clouds. So this is very much about the traditional workloads. This slide is actually something we work together with one of our customers, right? They are already moving into the DevOps. So they are already going onto the containerization. They are already using the CI/CD pipelines and so on. But we all know that we cannot reach there immediately. They still have to maintain some traditional workloads, but they want to leverage on this DevOps CI/CD pipelines and their DevOps process, even for the traditional workloads. So that is one of the very good thing about Ansible is that in Ansible Tower we have the REST API. So if you have any other technology in or tools in your environment, be it CI/CD pipeline, be it your ITSM tool, monitoring tools, right? If they have a REST API triggering capability, they can trigger to the Ansible to do something for them. So in this use case, they have the similar pipeline. If it is a containerized workload, it will be creating the container image, deploy to the Kubernetes, and so on. If it is a traditional application, there, there's a pipeline will trigger to the Ansible Tower. Then Ansible Tower will perform the necessary action, create the required resources in the VMware or in the cloud based on the requirement. Then after that, this pipeline will continue to deploy the application, validation, and so on. So they can retain or they can maintain the similar DevOps CI/CD approach, even for the traditional workloads with Ansible. So I think we are pretty much done about traditional workloads. Now today is, as we all know, it is a very time of the Kubernetes. Everyone is going on to Kubernetes. Everything is moving to Kubernetes direction. At many times, our customers ask, many different people ask, if we all go to Kubernetes, how Ansible will really fit into the picture, how Ansible can help you with it. It is very normal that we all have the multiple different environment, UAT, development, testing, production, DR, on-premise, on the cloud, and so on. The same apply in Kubernetes. All our customers end up with many different Kubernetes clusters in many different places, and they need something to really maintain it. And even in the Kubernetes world, Kubernetes is not everything. You still have other components like monitoring, ticketing system, your storage, network, security systems around your Kubernetes. So these are the things that not natively interface with Kubernetes. That is where Ansible came into the picture. So even in your Kubernetes world, you will still need some sort of uh, capabilities. So in Red Hat, we have a Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes. That is a very good product that our customers can use to manage not only the OpenShift, but also for like EKS, AKS kind of the Kubernetes clusters across on-premise and many different clouds. So they can have a single pane of glass for many different Kubernetes services. And also they can use ACM to deploy the different OpenShift cluster in the different environment as well. And if there are things that beyond Kubernetes capability or the Kubernetes capacity, ACM can trigger Ansible to take care of the rest. So this is the standard application deployment for this scenario, right? One, the application is a new application is deployed. In ACM, we have something called uh, Ansible operator. So ACM can trigger Ansible, and in our application deployment, there's a pipeline. We can have the pre and post configuration. So before we start on the container application deployment portion, we can have Ansible to prepare some requirements for you. Then actual Kubernetes component start, application deploy, and so on. Maybe things like maybe if your application require to create an S3 package, for example, Ansible can create for you, present it to you, then your application will deploy in your Kubernetes, make use of that S3 package. Then after that, we can have a post hook where maybe you were to uh, the close the ticket or the close the there's a service request or maybe update some records and so on. So that is how ACM and Kubernetes will work together hand in hand to able to help you with Kubernetes or non-Kubernetes requirements automation across hybrid cloud scenarios. So this is how things works together in OpenShift, ACM, and Ansible. So in summary, with the hybrid cloud and multi-cloud requirement that we have today, what Ansible can help you is that Ansible can be your common platform, something everyone can use for the different requirements or the use cases. And some Ansible is very composable. So once you write once, you create your automation job once, you can reuse it along the way. And again, Ansible is the technology that can help you bridge between your traditional workloads to your modern cloud infrastructure workloads, right? So that is pretty much about it. So if you have any question, please feel free to uh, type in the chat, right? We will try to help you with the answers, and we are very open to hear from you as well. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
What a great session. Thank you, Ryan. We have Chai Mei Yang, Solutions Architect at Red Hat Malaysia. As the DevOps disruptor, here is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Mei Yang is going to walk us through how Ansible's numerous tools and features make an ideal continuous integration and continuous deployment CI/CD solution. Mei Yang, please.
Hi, a very good afternoon, everyone. How are you today? Thank you for joining this year of Ansible Automate event. I hope you all are getting well and safe, right? First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Mei Yang. I'm a solution architect from Red Hat. Today, I'm going to share with you, right, putting the ops back into the DevOps with CI/CD pipeline. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me share with you what is CI/CD for. What is the CI/CD and what CI is referring to over here, right? CI, it stands for continuous integration. It's a coding of philosophy and a set of practices that drive development team, right, to implement a small change and a check-in code to version control repository frequently. Because most of the modern application nowadays, right, require a developing code in a different type of platform and also different type of tools, right? People are normally develop the code in any way and also any places, right? This make the team, right, need a mechanism to really integrate and validate those changes itself. CI here, right, basically establish the consistency and also automated way to build a package and test the application. With the consistency in the integration process in place, right, the team are more likely, right, to commit the code change more frequently, which leads to a better collaboration among the team itself and also to increase the software quality. In a short say, right, successful continuous integration means those new code change to an application are regularly built, tested, and merged into the shared repository. This is what a CI is referring to. So how about the CD, right? CD here, basically, we have two types of definition, continuous delivery and continuous deployment. Let's look at what is this continuous delivery over here, right? It's basically automate the delivery of application to selected infrastructure environment. As we know that, right, most of the team work with multiple type of environment other than the production environment. They also work in this environment called development environment, testing environment, staging environment. And continuous delivery here is to ensure that is right, automated way to push the code change to them, right? Whereas another CD we call continuous deployment here, right? We can be referring to the automatically releasing a developer change from a repository to a production itself. So when people is asking, is that possible, right? For CI/CD to just specific on this connected practices for continuous integration and also continuous delivery, or it also must mean that, right, all three connected practices for continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment? For me, right, basically either way are okay, right? In the end, right, it's just probably not worth all your time, right, to get bogged down in this semantics itself. Just remember that, right, the CI/CD is a really processes and often visualized as pipeline that involve adding in a high degree on ongoing automation and also continuously monitoring your application developments. We should know that, right, the CI/CD is one of the best practices for DevOps team to implement. It's also an agile methodology best practices as it enables the software development team to focus on meeting business requirements, right, code quality, and also security because of deployments that are all automated, right? So when we are talking about the CI/CD pipeline, right, it's basically a series of steps that must be performed in order to deliver a new version of software. The steps basically include preparing a building, deployment, and testing. When we're talking about the CI/CD pipeline itself, right, it's applied to different environments. Those environments are like development environment, test environment, production environment, and staging environment, which I mentioned earlier, right? So when we develop or configure the requirement, right, developer is looking to automate those tasks that require to perform by them. And when we're talking about automation, right, we really found that a lot of people and also a lot of developers, right, they are normally running so-called typical shell script, right, to just install and configure the application component. And if they want to harden or run the security itself, right, they basically just they run a shell script to run the security hardening, right? But if you are using a typical shell script over here, right, a few things we really need to consider. Like first, there are no centralized or standard of operating environment or security standard over here. Basically, each team are just responsible for their own shell script, right, which are working very silo way and can result in the drift from the standard, right? The second part that we need to looking at is for the long life workload itself. The day two management need to be considered. For example, like the day-to-day management patching itself, right? Do we really need to use that as a manual way or simply use a shell script, right, to automate it? So this kind of things, right, will really require to be considered and further think about that, right? You might also ask me, right, where is and how is Ansible come into this picture? So let us view that how Ansible come into this picture for the CI/CD pipeline. As we know that, right, Ansible is an enterprise automation tool. When Ansible are in place, right, in your environment, right, we basically can integrate Ansible into a CI/CD pipeline. So in the CI/CD pipeline itself, Ansible Tower API being called to perform the continuous delivery and continuous deployments, right? With this, right, Ansible will automate the CI/CD pipeline by always use the most up-to-date standard operating environment hardening script. You no longer need, right, to look for those latest script and deploy it manually. And a proper playbook was written in advance to assist you to deploy accordingly. This also applies to other day 2 pipeline like patching, which will also be automated by the Ansible itself. On the other hand, right, when we are looking for Ansible delivery pipeline, Ansible are able to play a role here, right, to assist you by promoting your environment to a different type of stages. Right? You no longer require to build every environment starting from the scratch manually, and also manually promote the environment from a development stage to a testing stage, from a testing stage to the UAT stage, right? So we can let the Ansible to help you to automate those deployment, right, which fulfill the continuous deployment environment. So if a picture worth of 1,000 of word here, right, then I would like to say that, right, video will worth 1,000 of picture. Ladies and gentlemen, right, let me share a demo video on how Ansible playing a role in this CI/CD pipeline. This video basically will show you, right, the continuous deployment for Mode 1 application using the Ansible itself. Before I kickstart this video, right, let me brief you what is the Mode 1 and Mode 2, the difference between the Mode 1 and Mode 2, right, application deployment itself. Right? So Mode 1 itself, basically application they're talking about the skill out and very proprietary, and the deployment basically is done by the operator, right? And most likely they will integrate with the middleware. Whereas for the Mode 2 itself, right, we're talking about the skill out, right, and also the open source. Normally it's deployed by the developer and integrate well with the API. So you might ask, is that Ansible only done by only Mode 1 application? No, right? Ansible are able to automate both mode of deployments. Right? We are able to integrate well in this Mode 1 and also Mode 2. But in this video, we are just talking about this application deployment using Ansible in the Mode 1, right, deployments, right? So before I really move on, right, I would like to share with you also the generic CI/CD flow over here. Normally, right, the developer will pick up the issue or any bugs, right, or any enhancement for the DevOps tool, right, such as Jira and whatever existing DevOps tool they are really working on it, right. When after they update the code itself and when they require to commit the code, right, the developer normally will commit to any source code management system repository like either or Git or GitHub or even a GitLab itself, right? When this is happen, right, it will trigger off a webhook towards a CI tool such as Jenkins to begin the continuous integration process. This will in turn lead to the build being pushed to the package